obviously, a lot has changed since you wrote this book, particularly What Perfect Timing. Obviously, AOC had, I guess, what you would call somewhat of an expose of sorts in the New York Times, alluding to this idea that she is now a DC insider, although she doesn't, classify herself as that. Since you wrote this book, We've Got People, what do you think has changed for the better, and what may have changed for the worse?
That's an interesting question. I mean, for the better, I think if you and actually my next book is sort of a follow-up.
Good, we need one now.
Yeah, which kind of the next book picks up in 2015. The last book ended in 2018 after the election of AOC and the rest of the squad and the occupation of Nancy Pelosi's office. This one picks up in 2015 so that you can kind of tell the arc of kind of Bernie Sanders' first presidential campaign, then through the squad, then the squad and Bernie's, like the first year that the squad and Bernie are in Congress together in 2019, then the 2020 presidential campaign, obviously, and then the back getting broken with Biden getting elected, and then through kind of Build Back Better, Inflation Reduction Act, American Rescue Plan, what it means to be these insurgent members of Congress when you have a trifecta and a very small majority, so that your votes matter. So, I mean, what's gotten better? I think the party, if you look at 2015, actually, if you look at, it's wild. If you look at Bernie Sanders' platform and you kind of look at Joe Biden, Bernie Sanders 2015 and Joe Biden 2020, like there's not a huge amount of difference. Now, these are platforms. This is just rhetoric. Yeah. But rhetoric, eventually, rhetoric does run downhill. Rhetoric isn't nothing. Like rhetoric is responding to what politicians believe is the center of, their sweet spot for votes. So if they think in the 1990s that by being neoliberals and being tough on crime, that's going to be the thing that's going to get them reelected, that's what the rhetoric is, and ultimately you're going to end up getting legislation that is within that kind of the construct of that rhetoric. It takes a long time, and there's a lot of lags, and there are all these different choke points and veto points that prevent rhetoric and campaigning from becoming policy, but it tends in that direction. So I do think the center of the Democratic Party has moved, in a significant way to the left. Like the irony, it's wild if you think back. Joe Biden was stuck on Barack Obama's ticket to be the right-wing guy.
Yeah.
He was the right-wing white guy who it was buddies with Strom Thurmond, and it was going to reassure all the white working class people. That was like the cynical approach that Obama's team was taking when they were choosing between him and even worse people like Evan Bayh, if you can believe it or not, was on a short list. You remember that?
Okay, I like Evan Bayh, and I have a really cute picture of you with him, but I digress.
Very nice guy, lovely guy. And I think he left the Indiana Senate and immediately went into private equity, and then he tried to come back in 2016 and got rinsed. So anyway, consider the fact that he was put on the ticket to be to Obama's right.
Yeah. And
as president, I think he has governed to Obama's left. And Obama is, if Biden is considered to be kind of the center of where the party is, that's always what he's done. He's just this politician who's a magnet for the political center. He doesn't care. He's just gunning right for that spot. And so through 2021, 2022, he thought that the political center was to the left of where it was under Obama. Now, some of that is just, I think, a product of material changes in our economy and in people's lives. People's lives have gotten in some ways a lot worse. Rent and housing prices continue to skyrocket. You had 5-6 years that it took to recover from the 2008 financial crisis. You didn't really start to see a significant economic recovery till 2016 or so. Democrats lost the Senate in 2014, I think, because it was still slow. So that coupled with this soaring cost of education, like even you compare our we're slightly different ages, but like just in my lifetime, it has gone from something that was expensive and left people with debt to something that's like almost like astronomically out of reach for so many people, and saddling them with like 6-figure debts.
Yeah.
Like that's those two things. So now you have the cost, the cost of housing and the cost of education eating everything up, and producing so much precarity. And I think the climate has gotten worse, like more noticeably worse. Like you're seeing, just even compared to 2008, you're seeing more hurricanes, more wildfires, choking on more smoke. You're seeing more floods, and you're expecting them to. Like you're expecting them to get worse too, and so that gives you a sense of precarity, and that sense of future precarity, coupled with the fact that you're struggling, perhaps more than people were, it just sucks away the hope from people. And out of that, you're going to get people who want more left-wing stuff, and you're going to get people who want more far right-wing stuff. Like and I think that tells you basically why our politics have changed the way they are. So it's not that anybody necessarily deserves a whole lot of credit. I'm not saying like congratulations to Bernie and the squad for like moving the party to the left, because a significant amount of it was moved by material conditions and people responding to those conditions. But at the same time, Bernie did really kind of open people's eyes to the idea that this government is supposed to be here for you, and that with enough collective energy, you can impact what that government does, and you can actually you can collectively help yourself. And I think that a lot of people, because of all of the precarity and misery and suffering that they're going through, overlook how much Biden and the Democrats got through in 2021 and I guess early 2022. The $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan, plus the hundreds of billions for infrastructure, plus then 400 billion for climate money in the Inflation Reduction Act, which is already being leveraged, by private money many times over. Because that was the thing that so many climate advocates they weren't saying it publicly, because publicly all the talk is about specifically what's the public investment, but they also knew like that there was trillions of dollars sitting on the sidelines waiting to come in and invest in some proven technologies and some unproven technologies, making solar panels cheaper, making batteries last longer, getting charging stations everywhere. And the government was not going to pay for every single bit of that, but the government needed to subsidize it against the fossil fuel industry. And even though I think it's scored at like 375 billion or whatever, the Inflation Reduction Act, which is a huge amount of money, leveraged, that's going to be in the trillions. So it's not nothing. Like the fact that John Ossoff and Raphael Warnock, won those Senate races and gave Democrats a majority, may end up being, we're worth trillions and trillions of dollars of social spending that wouldn't have happened otherwise. So what's the role of Bernie and the squad in all of that? It's I think certainly galvanizing young people played a role. Like if you look at Georgia, for instance, young people, Michigan, all these states that could have gone either way, young people made the difference. And young people are the most progressive ones out there, and they're the ones that are really pulling people, really forcing Democrats to at least pay attention to progressives.
Thanks for watching. If you want to support our mission to transform politics into service, please like this video, subscribe, follow us on social media, and consider joining our Patreon, where you'll get early access to our interviews as well as other exclusive content. Links are in the description. Peace out.